Shaka, I guess just start off with what you liked, what you didn't like from, last week and heading into this week with two big-time opponents you've beaten on the road.
Last week was a challenging week, just in that I thought we did some good things in both the games, particularly the Oklahoma game. But uh, on the record side of things, it's two losses, and at the end of the day, that's a really really powerful thing. Is whether you win or you lose. But we just want to keep making progress as a team. I think. When you go through games like those on the road, they can be really good learning experiences for your team and individual guys. Just looking around college basketball, and I've always felt this way, when teams go on really long winning streaks, it's really, really hard to continue getting better. Sometimes a loss or a couple of losses can remind you of what you need to improve on. The ideal thing would be to win a bunch of games in a row and also get better and improve, but we're also battling human nature a little bit.
Shaka, talking about human nature, did you sense any bounce or step with the guys either coming home or maybe Sunday, because y'all are now that you're past Iowa State, you go into a very favorable home stretch with 4 of 6 at home, and the 4 you're getting at home are big.
Yeah, favorable would be playing Kenyon College, where I played. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to be coming back home, that's for sure. And then in terms of the guys, I thought our guys did a nice job of being self-reflective coming out of the Iowa State game. There was a lot of plays in that game that we'd love to have back and could do some things differently. But at the same time, you got to give Iowa State a lot of credit too. I think a lot of times the focus is just on your team, and the other team has a lot to do with whether you win or lose as well. But certainly our guys, I thought yesterday they were really good. I told them it's amazing how much energy that you can create if you want to. If you are in the right place mentally. And so one of the things this time of year I think a lot of college basketball teams are dealing with is it's the quote-unquote dog days, or whatever you want to call it. And so you could think that you're tired and you can feel a little run down. But the reality is a team that's able to create a good spirit and a good level of energy has a big edge.
Shaka, you mentioned them being self-reflective. Do you challenge them to look into the mental side of what's going on in the process? Because we know what they're going through physically, but
yeah,
mentally is something that we don't always talk about.
No, that's a great point, and we do challenge them on that. And it's one of the things in coaching that I think is fascinating, in that depending on the player or the team, they have the flexibility to handle a certain level of challenge. And once you get above that level, certain people can't handle that. So one of your jobs as a coach is to figure out, like, okay, how much can I really challenge this guy or this team? And in your first year as a coach, it's a unique thing because you don't have the same history of having been through certain experiences at the same time of year with guys before. So yeah, we definitely do. And I learned from Billy Donovan to err on the side of telling guys the truth. And I don't mean not lying to them. I mean, and that's bad too if you did that. But by telling the truth, what I mean is just telling them what they need to hear. And Billy always used to talk about putting guys' backs against the wall. And sometimes it's, hey, here's what it is, and you got to make a decision one way or the other.
Shaka, this program's really struggled down the stretch in February and March the last 5-6 years, and these guys have been a part of a couple of those. Does that come up at all, and how do you get this team playing its best basketball come March?
Well, you just got to keep getting better. I think that's progression is a big emphasis for us, and that progression sometimes is as simple as working on the fundamentals of the game. Working on moving your feet on defense or stepping into your shot on offense. If a guy's struggling with his shooting or with his decision making, working on those things. But that progression is also a team thing. I wasn't here, so I can't really speak to what happens in the last 5-6 years. I would guess part of that is the competition, is really, really high. And then from there, it's an interaction. It's an interaction of the people on the team. And I think, again, I've said this before, when I got here, a lot of people wanted to place all the blame on one person. And I get that. That's kind of the culture that we live in. And I'm not just talking about our players. I'm talking about a lot of people. So the thing is, we remind our guys of that. Well, okay, that's changed now. What are you going to do? And if we have success, if we're able to do better in February and March than maybe these guys have in the past, it's going to be because the players emerge and step forward and get better and are able to do the things that go into winning.
Is that a mental challenge for them to overcome that, or do you think it's because it's different?
I think it's a challenge for everyone, but no matter what team you're on. But it's not like something that they can't do. And I don't get the sense that our guys are like, oh, no, this happened last year, this happened the year before. To be honest with you, I get the sense from them that they're saying, man, we can be really, really good. But here's the connector in all that is it is hard, to do all the little things that go into winning. It's not easy. So are you willing as a group, and can everyone at the same time come together to do those things? And that's what creates the success that they want to have.
You mentioned sometimes a week like this can highlight areas of improvement. Were there any specific areas that stood out in that regard that the guys felt after the week like we've got to get better in this area?
To be honest, Dustin, most of that's me telling them in this case. So you'd have to ask them, what they thought. And I try to get those guys to speak up, but it's not the most vocal group. I'll stand in front of the team, and the guys will be sitting there like you guys are. And, I always try to create a level of dialogue among those guys. But when you get, I don't know if it's this generation or what, but when you get guys in a group, they tend to be pretty quiet. But the good thing is, I think for the most part, they agree with what I'm saying. And now it's just a matter of carrying that over. So to answer your question, one of the things I did yesterday is I wrote the points that we've given up in the last several games up on the whiteboard. And so the first number was 85. And then the second number was 63, what we gave up against Oklahoma. And then there was about 5 other numbers in the last several games. I said, guys, one of these things is not like the other. And that's Iowa State. Now, again, George Niang and Monte Morris, and those guys had something to do with that. And I want to be careful. I hate when coaches make it all about what we didn't do. But we could have played better defense. We need to play better defense, whether it's against Iowa State or whether it's the last 3 minutes against Oklahoma, whatever it may be. So that's one area. And what's more important than just saying we need to play better defense is the stuff that goes into playing better defense. So, for instance, we had a season low in the Iowa State game in deflections. It's amazing how that correlates. Again, you're playing against a good passing team, but you got to get your hands on the basketball. And so those are things that we got to work on getting better at.
Ricky? Shaka, Tevin's played really well twice against Iowa State. Is there something about that matchup that's let him play well, and how do you kind of get that consistently from him?
Yeah, the funny thing was after the first game we played them, George Niang, who's like one of my favorite all-time players. Not just because of the way he plays, but I just love his humility level and the way that he approaches things. He said, Tevin Mack hit 3 threes. And he would, Tevin kind of took a little bit of offense to it, but all he meant was, like, this guy doesn't normally do this. But Tevin said going into the second game, he said, I like playing against Iowa State. He said, it's more like an AAU game. Whatever that means. And, I think he got 12 threes up on Saturday. I told him, again, every guy is capable of a certain level of challenge, but I told Tevin, I said, you can't shoot 12 threes and never shot fake. So we got to get better at him learning how to show the shot and then put the ball on the floor and make a play for himself or his teammate. But that's all part of the progression. And coming out of high school, he was more of a scorer than a shooter. This year, I think he's found more comfort in just shooting outside because there's quicker, stronger, more athletic guys when he puts on the floor. But he'll get better. I think just the game's a little bit more open playing against those guys. And because of the attention that they give Isaiah, particularly just the way that they defend, certain other guys are going to get open shots.
The magic of getting guys to all perform well at the same time.
Yeah.
Does that have to come, you always talk about connectivity, does that have to come from them getting each other to do it at this point?
It's amazing. That's a great point, Chip, in that it almost seems like from the outside looking in, not me as a coach, but from the outside looking in, if you look at majority of teams, it's like guys take turns playing well, and then they take turns struggling or having a rough game. And the reality is, I figured this out a little while ago, is that it comes down to how someone's feeling about themselves. If a guy's not feeling good about himself, it's really hard for him to play well. So part of our job as coaches is to create a good feeling about ourselves and about each other. But at the same time, we can't just skip around and practice and sing Kumbaya all the time. We have to have accountability as well, and we have to challenge guys to get better. So, why did Tevin Mack have a pretty good game against Iowa State, at least on offense? Because he was feeling good about himself. Using him as an example, why is he struggling in other games, not feeling as good? And I think you could say that about almost every player on our team. And I would say 90-some% of guys in college basketball, the unique guys, they have a way of making themselves be in the right place every time they take the floor. But at this age group, that's hard to do. I think the answer to that is about focusing on each other and lifting each other up. And I didn't think Iowa State, we did a good job of that. I didn't like our team in that regard on Saturday. And we've been pretty good in that way this year, and I think these guys have made a lot of progress. I told our guys when we were in China, it was a couple days before the game, I told them, I said, we got a bunch of front runners on this team. Something doesn't go our way, we just flip out, and everyone's focused on the wrong things, and no one's focused on each other. I think they've made a lot of progress in that regard since, November or whenever that was. But it doesn't necessarily, you're not guaranteed that it's just this linear progression. You have to, as a team, focus on growing in that way. And when you wake up in the morning, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you got to do something in your mind to say, okay, I care about Connor Lambert, I care about Cam Ridley, I care about Demarcus Holland, and I want to help them be better as well as trying to be the best I can be.
kind of bouncing off that question, Shaka, you've said before that this isn't the most naturally confident team you've had before. It looked like the way Tevin was playing at Iowa State, he had that natural confidence. And
Yeah.
I guess the question is, he almost looked brash in a way. Do you want more brashness and that kind of just visible confidence from guys when they're
You're
playing
talking
well?
about when he's going like this to the
Yeah.
crowd? He's a trip, you know. Those three freshmen, those guys will be confident players, highly confident players. They're just going. They're on a roller coaster ride right now. They don't have a seatbelt on, and they're holding on to make sure they don't get thrown from the roller coaster. And they're doing a good job. You know, I was talking to the guys yesterday about different things with our team and some of the psychological things that happen over the course of the season. And I told the three freshmen, while I was talking to the whole team, I said, you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. You will. Just keep trying to do the best you can. I learned from I had two college coaches. My first college coach, he would talk completely differently to us as freshmen than he did to the rest of the team. And he would yell and scream at the team, and then he would say to the freshmen, I'm not talking to you, guys are doing a good job. Sometimes that is the case with certain teams. Now, our freshmen, to whom much is given, much is expected. So if they're going to play heavy minutes, then all right, they need to, do what goes into that. But, yeah, the answer to your question, I wouldn't mind more guys demonstrating some swagger out there. I think it's a fine line. You don't want to act like an idiot. But, if you look at a guy like Isaiah Cousins from Oklahoma, and I told our freshmen this, like, he has decided this is my persona on the court. And he does it every game. And it includes some trash talking, it includes some scowling, but you know what, it works for him. And he's one of the better players in the league because of that. If he tried to be the same way as Buddy Hield, for instance, or someone else, maybe he's not playing as well out there. And at the end of the day, you want to be whatever you need to be to play well. So if that's what Tevin needs to do, fine. My big thing with him is if you watch the extent to which he's clapping on the court, it's a direct correlation with how well he's playing. So just a little, we talk about micro behaviors with our guys, just that little micro behavior of clapping, it correlates with how well you play. But it's a chicken and egg thing. Does the playing well come first, and then you're willing to do the certain things that demonstrate that swagger? That's okay, but that's not always going to work. You have to do the things that go into playing well first.
You mentioned mentality of your guys. How's Demarcus doing? He's not playing the minutes that he's played in the past, and the freshmen are getting a lot more minutes than him.
Well, I don't want to speak for him, but outwardly he's been terrific, and he's very committed to his teammates. He wants to win. He's the most unselfish guy on our team, and almost to a fault. But I would say going down the stretch for us to play as well as we want to play, we need to – he's going to need to play certainly more than he did against Iowa State, which I'm the one that determines the playing time. So that's on me. But when he goes out there, we need him to be able to play with a clear head, not worry, just go out and play. And hopefully that's what we'll see.
West Virginia question, Shaka. How much going into the previous game? What did you see on film that made you guys think, hey, we should press them and kind of, get back at them with what they do? And the second part of that is, at this point in the season, how much are you really focusing on what an opponent is doing in their last 3-4 games versus what you want to do?
Well, I focus more than anything on that last game. If you're playing a team a second time, I really put more into that than anything else. But you certainly watch. But by last game, I mean the last time we played them. You certainly watch their last several games that they've played. But it's a unique interaction between two teams, and when you have a game tape of that. Now, I thought the first time we played them, it was a strange game. Just all around, there's a lot of things that were abnormalities in that game. For instance, Isaiah was 0 for 8, but I thought he played well. Really, other than Javon, nobody on our team really was able to get going offensively, but it was 56-49. So on their side of things, they shot the ball poorly from the foul line, and they also, they were 3 for 21 from 3. So I'm sure it's a game that they look at and they say, well, we could have done this, we could have done that. But I think, we put a lot into what we tried to do offensively, both in the full court and the half court, and how we can adjust there. And then defensively, the glaring thing is we can't give them 24 offensive rebounds.
Can you talk a little bit about Prince Eva's development as a player and how he and Isaiah are working off each other?
Yes. I think Prince has always shown signs of being a guy that can play at a high level. And by always, I'm saying going back to when he was, freshman here at Texas. If you look at last year's team, just the roster, there was a lot of bigs. I mean, it was something where not everyone was going to be able to play a lot. And he was probably affected by that to some extent. And then this year, Cam started the year, playing really, really well. We ended up playing them together some, but not a lot. So he wasn't playing quite as much as certainly he wanted to. And then when Cam went down, he got a hugely, just a much bigger opportunity. So it's interesting. I ask some of these guys all the time, how many minutes do you need to play for you to be engaged? How many minutes do you need? Is it 10, 15, 20? Do you need to start? Like, what is it there? Because sometimes I like to kind of put it back on these guys, like, what are we really talking about here? But the reality is he's been way more engaged. And, again, human nature dictates that when you have a bigger opportunity, you're gonna be more into it. I think the biggest thing is he's taken the opportunity and he's done a really good job with it. Now, I didn't think in Iowa State game he was as good as he had been. Now, his numbers were pretty good, but he just was not quite himself. I think, knock on wood, I think he'll be good tomorrow. I could see a motivation in his eyes yesterday. And we're talking about a very, very high level intellect on this guy. I mean, he thinks about things at a high level, not quite the same as like a coach would just because he's not trained as a coach, but just some basketball things and some human things that he just understands. So I told him, the more you care, the better you'll do, the better we'll do. It sounds simple, but he just got to show himself and everyone else around him how much he cares, how much he's engaged. And I think he's done a better and better job of doing that. And he's helped himself now, too. He's opened up some eyes. I mean, there's been a lot of the guys that come watch our team. They love a 6'11" guy that's athletic, can block shots, and can rebound. So he's just got to keep doing what he's doing.
You've mentioned in the past that the team on the floor kind of goes as Isaiah goes. Do you feel like it's the same off the floor in a leadership standpoint? And how does his unique personality play into that? And secondarily, sorry for a double question, but is there an update on Cam after his appointment?
Answer the second one first. Cam had an appointment last week. Was it last week, Scott? And his bone is healing. It's not healed yet. They didn't clear him, but they cleared him to do more than he had been doing. I think he can put 75% weight on that foot. It's not 100 yet, so he's still using his little cart deal and crutches, but he's got another appointment. Next week will be 8 weeks. Next week on Tuesday, so he's got another appointment next week, and we'll see, how much growth he's able to make. We're hoping that next week on Tuesday he gets cleared to do more. He's not going to be cleared to play next week, but it's one of those things with a broken foot. It's got to be a gradual progression bringing him back. But we're hopeful that he can play sometime in early March. I think it's somewhat unrealistic to expect him to play before that. And your first question was about Isaiah, leadership off the court. It's just a matter of, it's just investing in your teammates. I try to get him to understand all the time, you need these guys to get where you want to go. You need these guys to win games. And I think when you're 21 years old, you don't fully understand that. But he's made a lot of progress in that regard. And tell you what, one thing I love about Isaiah is he really cares. He does. I can't stand apathetic people, and he's the opposite of that. I mean, he really cares, and he really wants to do well. He wants his teammates to do well. Sometimes he doesn't always understand the way to communicate something, but the more he can just try to be connected with those guys and with us as coaches, I think it's going to benefit him. What do you mean broached it? Well, he is shut down right now. You're saying like a horse, shoot him? Are you saying, is it possible he won't play the rest of the year? Well, I guess it's possible. I would hope that doesn't happen, but we're not going to – he is shut down until he gets cleared. So we're not going to play him until the doctor says he is cleared to play basketball. And, I mean, we have less than 3 weeks left in our regular season. Then the season could go as long as April 4th, or it could not, So depending on when our season, how far our season goes to, we know we'll play in the conference tournament. That is, when's the conference tournament? The second week in March. I would say that's kind of what we're hoping for, is to get him back there. But is it possible that he doesn't play there and then doesn't play the next week? I mean, anything's possible, but we're not going to dwell on that, and we're certainly not going to shut him down right now. So we're just going to see how that thing progresses and how it develops. But the good thing, Brian, is our team right now is just trying to be the best we can be against West Virginia tomorrow and this week. And our current reality is playing without Cam. So if for some reason that reality stays the same for the rest of the season, then we're not going to cancel the season or not go up to Kansas City. But if and when we get him back, we certainly welcome him back, and we'll be excited about what he can add to our team. Thanks, Gary.